Hello, my friends. I have returned after 2 weeks away from recording videos, and a lot has happened. Some of it positive, and some of it not so positive. But I am persevering. Like Tarzan said, I yet live. So that's a shout out to the Walt Newton crew out there, my buddies in Farmer Land. So anyway, I wanted to get back into the game and get caught up a little bit. Um, One thing that has been kind of holding me back is trying to decide what I was going to do for the 100th episode of Blue Review. So I couldn't think of anything super special. I did think of a few things super special, but kept thinking, no, it's not quite right. Do I want to do something from my library that's a super special Blu-ray? Do I want to review something incredible I've streamed? I definitely want to keep it down to like one item, like one work, one film, rather than reel off a whole bunch. But then I did think about maybe doing a 2-hour special, um, and just boring the hell out of you guys for an epic length, even beyond what I've done before. That would be super special for me, but maybe not to you guys. And I don't have the ability to do live stream yet, I don't think. And if I do, I don't know if anyone would watch, but yet. One day I will. I've been watching a lot of live streams. I really enjoy that vibe and the participation in the chats, but I just don't know if I can acquire that yet. So what I'm going to do tonight is just say to hell with it, and this is going to be the 100th episode of Blue Review. I think I started this show in October of 2020. A lot of the early ones are just really poorly lit and badly presented. I was nervous. Sometimes I spoke really quickly, too quickly, and sometimes I still do that. I've been working lately to try to improve each episode, as far as an aspect of something that I think needs improving, that I can work on in the way I speak, the way I communicate, the way I have my material together, focus. I've been trying to outline things a little better on paper, which I never used to do. And I haven't done tonight. I'm going to go ahead and warn you. But on occasion, I do that, and that's helped. Try to outline them in my head as best I can, but I tend to go off on tangents. I think the last few videos I've been a little better about not going too far afield on tangents before I've brought across a central point. And I mentioned lighting. This lighting, depending on how my webcam is acting and just the natural luminescence of my bulbs, some of which are dying in this area, sometimes this is really clear and like real colors, sort of. Tonight, though, we're back to this kind of red tinged, and it's like I could experiment here and show you. Like if I lighten this up, okay, so I'm a little more fleshy looking, but I don't really like it. It doesn't have any mood to it. That's better. I'm getting a little oranger, and then I could get darker. So maybe that's almost too dark. This is kind of where I was at before, I think. Right about there. It's like finding a sweet spot. I'll know it when I see it. It's kind of how I eyeball my paintings and things when I finish them. How is that? Well, I like it anyway. But I'll lighten it a little. But there's a reason I'm doing all this is because the film that I'm going to talk about tonight employs a lot of this kind of lighting, this kind of monochromatic, especially on the blue scale of the spectrum, and heavy on the reds, and the contrast between the two, and of course lighting is to me the key visually of film anyway, and photography in general. There are those that would disagree with me. I had a bizarre debate with a former friend of mine some years back about this. Sometime I'll tell you about it. It was kind of amusing. But I have concluded, just based on doing photography and now shooting things, and of course doing art, visual art, and of course watching movies and taking in photography and art And just, the eye. Some artists have the eye. I used to tell my ex-fiance, Kelly, you've got the eye. She was a splendid, not only at drawing, painting, and sculpting, but at photography. Um, I'm sure she would have done some incredible films if she ever decided to do that. And she did a lot of erotic selfies, and they're incredible. I mean, because she had the eye for the composition and what is showing just enough to tantalize you, and also lighting and coloring. Um, wow. So anyway, but unfortunately, I can't publish those things because she would sue me, and that would just be a cruel, horrible thing to do. That's like revenge porn level. But those images have inspired a lot of my art. She was a muse for me in that area, and possibly in the future she'll do more, paintings of herself, because she has a wonderful body and she knows how to highlight it and accentuate those things through lighting. Whereas the friend I was talking about earlier, he would do a lot of selfies and film himself in his own films and film models and do photography of models and sometimes sweeten it in the computer, do some digital touch up on it. And he didn't have the eye. He just didn't have the eye. As a matter of fact, he rebelled obstinately against having the eye. But like I said, that's a story for another time. But that is kind of the way that this movie that I'm about to talk about is a triumph on these levels. And it's a triumph of atmosphere, and it's a movie that is very overlooked, very under-discussed. It was not very well liked when it came out. It made an obscenely low amount of money, so I'm sure it lost, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. But I love it. So anyway, let's wade into this, man. So this is my DVD. This is, I believe, out of print. Currently, brand new copies are going for about $50. Used ones only for about $20. Otherwise, I might sell it because I really need money. But this also means a lot to me, and it's kind of lost in the limbo between formats. So hence, I am making this I believe, the 7th chapter of my Extreme and Forgotten series. I'll correct that down there if I'm wrong, but I believe number 6 was Sweet Movie. So anyway, it's New Rose Hotel from 1998, directed by the great Abel Ferrara. Look at my color. It kind of corrected itself now. Isn't that weird how that happened? See, that just did it by itself. So anyway, I'm okay with this, though. So, yes, what a cast, man. Christopher Walken, Willem Dafoe, and Asia Argento, based on a cyberpunk short story by William Gibson, kind of the father of the cyberpunk sci-fi subgenre. So there's a lot to unpack here, or is there? It has a deceptively simple plot, really. You can kind of tell it was based on a short story, and that Abel Ferrara expanded it, expounded on it, improvised. I believe there is a bit of improvisation in this movie and the performances. And then he did a lot of other kind of experimenting after the fact in the cutting room floor and the assemblage of the film. And it's an incredible mood piece. It's shot by Ken Kelsch, who has shot a lot of Ferrara's better movies. I'm going to get into a little bit of homework here I did. My old school kind of cheating that I do once in a while, because I like to, I want to bolster this with some facts, because like I said, the actual story, the actual substance of the movie seems a little like a sketch kind of at times, more than a full-blown feature. So let's bring the lights down a little bit here. I wanted the red back. Anyway, let's get back into this. I am going to check a couple of things out here. Some of the text. So yeah, I think I've given you the basic gist of some of this. It was written by Chris Zwa, who I'm not familiar with, and Abel Ferrara. It says he wrote 2 short-term therapy books. Okay. Originally, the screenplay was written by Zoe Tamerlis Lund. who is no longer with us. She died during the period where this was being developed, I think, or maybe she might have died after that. Actually, this was being developed. Well, it was being developed as early as the '80s by the producer Edward R. Pressman, and for a while they wanted Catherine Bigelow, which I guess after like Near Dark and Strange Days, that kind of made sense. Though this might have been before Strange Days. Well, it's in that period where obviously Catherine Bigelow was seen as somebody that would be cool to attach to a cyberpunk film. As for Zoe, yeah, she died in 1999 at age 37, a year after this film. Now, I've reviewed Miss 45 on this channel, and that's one of my favorite Ferrara films. And she is kind of an iconic muse for Ferrara and collaborator, and someone who had a lot of potential, and her life ended far too early. So, what the fuck is this movie about? Well, okay, I'll just bring it to you. I've not read the short story. I've been remiss there. Basically, it takes place in, as I see it, a near future Tokyo, and it's a situation much like Blade Runner, which of course was a big influence on cyberpunk, where you have the cultures are, due to international commerce and these merging mega conglomerate corporations, trade, and infusion of culture, and one culture and another, hybridization of cultures and of technologies that, you know, uh, the world is becoming smaller, so to speak, more homogenized. And so Japan has now become the ascendant power economically primarily because of its technology and its success in the corporate world. And um, what we have here is kind of a situation where there's almost like a corporate oligarchy in Japan. You might say there's one in the U.S. right now in real life. Um, and, there's kind of a lot of cutting edge technology uh, being bid for on the market, being constantly created and rushed out to market, and of course stolen and bootlegged and taken away by rival companies. And there's a lot of these companies that are buying like sharks for this cutting edge technology. The technology itself in some of this is, a bit oblique, a bit obtuse. I mean, as far as what it is, I mean, I think it seems to have to do with virtual reality and maybe communication systems. I mean, uh, computers, obviously, but on an incredibly higher level, maybe not than we have right now, but than we had in say 1998 when this was made, or of course when it was written, which I think is like in the '80s, the short story. So basically, it's more also like a character piece. So um, within this monolithic world in Tokyo with all this corporate espionage, um, you have these two kind of bizarre, eccentric, misfit characters who are trying to make a fortune hustling in this world, a world that's really not theirs, by birth, but that they kind of move within. And each of them has kind of alludes to kind of a, pasts of various successes and failures in these areas, as con men, as hustlers, as businessmen. The one is named Fox, only named Fox, and that's Christopher Walken. Uh, and the other is X. X, only known as X, Willem Dafoe. Uh, One of these write ups here describes these guys as corporate extraction specialists, half headhunters, half kidnappers who specialize in helping research and development scientists relocate from corporations who would rather see them dead than working for their competitors. So they're basically trying to grab the talent, the brains behind these inventions, and you know uh, insert them into another situation before they can be manipulated by whoever is about to put a contract out on them and control them and their work. So it's fascinating. And I'll be honest, some of these ideas I use in my own story, Flicker Street. I'm going to get into it, but some of those very ideas are core to an early part of Flicker Street. Um, I'm not saying I took it from this idea, but I kind of arrived at some of the similar kind of ideas. Um, but maybe William Gibson uh, is my muse. I don't know. But in any case, so there's a corporation called MAS, MAAS, a megacorp, which is referred to as a Zaibutsu, which was um, by Gibson, which was a Japanese term referring to industrial and financial vertically integrated business conglomerates in the Empire of Japan, whose influence and size allowed control over significant parts of the Japanese economy from the Meiji period until the end of World War II. Now, so as Zaibatsu, essentially, this is the very definition of fascism, is when the corporations own the government. This was true in Mussolini's Italy. This is true in modern America with its oligarchy. And this was true at this period with the Empire of Japan. So projecting a near future where U.S. and Japanese trade has, kind of bled into each other, albeit, it's a cutthroat situation. A Zaibatsu is a perfect way to describe this because essentially now you're looking at a society on the verge of fascism because it's going to be run by corporations. So who better to profit than these kind of ragtag, I don't know how to describe them. They're both intellectual, classy, sensitive, cultured guys, but though they're a bit different in personality, they complement each other and occasionally clash. This Fox and X we have here. But they want to subvert the system. They want to get in on this and get their piece. And according to the story, Fox has had several opportunities to do this in the past. And he wants to make it big because at one point he tried to cross MAAS, the big Zaibatsu, the big megacorp, and he was beaten and crippled for it. So he walks with a cane, a la his role in The Dead Zone, which I reviewed just previous to this as Blue Review episode 99. And like that review, this is Walken. I'm going to say this is Walken at his finest. This is almost a demented extrapolation of his performance of Johnny Smith, the dark Johnny Smith, still limping around, still philosophical and in tune, but not soft and in control and manner. This is Walken in the kind of measured and soft, borderline manic, and can explode at any moment in your face, in this over-the-top histrionic fit. That Walken is quite rightfully known for being a master of. So, what is the plot these guys have? Well, there's a scientist called Hiroshi, played by Yoshitaka Amano. He's described here vaguely as a paradigm-shattering super genius. And the deal is they want to obviously woo him, or in this case, will literally woo him, seduce him over to their side to inject in another Zaibatsu that Fox is on better terms with, you just say. And then the payoff will be great for Fox and X. So everyone has a role in this scam. And the scam is, like I said, a literal wooing seduction kind of deal because they begin scouring these bars, and a lot of it is very evocative of Tokyo nightlife. which is evocative anyway, beautifully shot, and but it is kind of in a low budget kind of way evocative of Blade Runner with the just kind of flurry of people and different cultures and different languages and the hint of all this extreme technology, even though because it is low budget and it is a modest production, I believe somewhat purposefully, it's more hinted at. So it's kind of low key science fiction. It's definitely science fiction because the ideas are there. The visual presentation is not Blade Runner or anything like that, nor does it need to be because it's really a character based story. How do these characters move within this science fiction near future environment, this cyberpunk world? And what do they do to navigate it and survive it? And what happens when it turns against them? How do they survive, or do they survive? And who are these characters? Not just Fox and X, but we bring in the third part of the triumvirate of characters. Sandy, Sandii, a prostitute played by Asia Argento, and this is her at her most beautiful and fetching. She's not quite as fluent in English yet. She's fluent, but she's heavily accented. Beautiful, sexy, powerful, but her character, I guess you could say, I don't want to say she isn't that bright. She's cunning, but she's not like, a thinker like Fox who's like scheming out all this stuff. However, she's very receptive to these ideas. And the way these three actors play off of the initial meeting where they come up with this scheme is just amazing. Because, first of all, Fox is in this bar in Tokyo and he's talking to a character played by Annabelle Sciorra, another regular from Abel Ferrara who played alongside Christopher Walken in the brilliant movie The Addiction, which one day I'll get on Blue and definitely review. They both play vampires in that, Walken and Sciorra. And Walken is just super smooth, and he's just talking, and he's just like, my ship's gonna come in. I can feel it. There's all this coiled passion, and oh my God, he's really hammy, but it's beautiful. And the music, these girls are kind of taking turns at the bar singing these really pretty songs, especially this one song over and over. And I don't know who wrote the song for the movie. I want to say Abel Ferrara because it reminds me of some of the music he's written. It's really pretty. It almost reminds me of some of the 90s kind of gentle shoegaze stuff, albeit not as produced, not as much effects, a little more simple, a little more folky sounding, but similar melody, similar vibe, and maybe School ED wrote this music. I don't know. He did the soundtrack. He's done several Ferrara soundtracks. So these girls are taking turns singing it, and it's very evocative. And Fox meets up with X, and then a certain young lady begins singing the same song. And it's amazing. Just the whole, to me, this is a sensual film. This is like an environment, an atmosphere, and this is the kind I like to lose myself in films like this. Sometimes the plot really is only secondary when I'm in that kind of mode. I don't expect everyone to agree with that worldview, point of view. I mean, and it's not fast. It's not a cut and dried. It's case by case, film to film. But Ferrara is known for creating these kind of atmospheres, these kind of environments, through his use of sound and image and light and darkness and performances and subject matter. So Fox is basically, that's her, I think. That's her. So they bring in Sandy for an audition. And Walken's kind of holding court over the room, and X is more reserved. He's Dafoe, man. He's cool. He's calm. He's got a little edge there, but he's not out there like Fox. He's his foil. These two have a good kinship, great chemistry as actors, of course. And Asia completes the triangle. She plays off of both of them really well. When Walken as Fox extols the virtues of their plan, you're going to get Hiroshi to fall in love with you. You're going to bring him over, and we're going to extract him, and we're going to make the big bucks. And she's like, big bucks. She's not really, she plays a character who is Italian, and she's not great at English as far as slang. But she watches Walken kind of trying to dance around. Now his character is limping, but Walken really was and is a skilled dancer. So he's kind of maneuvering like he's basically saying, I think he may even say a throwaway line where he was a dancer before he was crippled. So he's still dancing around, holding court, but he's still awkwardly dancing with his cane. And it's a cool visual. He's a charismatic dude, and needless to say. And while he's explaining all this and breaking it down with this hustle, this passionate hustle, Asia's reactions, both in and out of character, are really amusing to watch. She's really kind of amused. I think some of her laughter and wide-eyed fascination and entertainment she's gleaning from Walken's performance. I don't think it's just Sandy being taken in by Fox. I think it's Asia being in awe of the talent of Walken, and I think that's captured on camera. I could be wrong. It could be all deliberate, but Walken improvises, and he'll pitch his performance. He'll do those sudden shifts in mood. And Ferrara has always given him rein with that, and several other directors have as well. But Asia comes across as someone who her character's a little naive, despite being, a hustler, and being underestimated because of her beauty, maybe being thought to be not too savvy. But like I said, she does turn out to be very cunning, because it's a survival thing. I mean, imagine surviving in that kind of world on the street level like that, and where everything's a commodity. Sex is still maybe the most powerful commodity in some ways. And they even say that. Walken invokes some insane. Have you ever heard this saying about a woman's pubic hair will sink a ship? That's not it, but it's something very similar to that I'd never heard in my life. Of course, he spins it in a more amusing, but still kind of perverse fashion, and she laughs. But it's what he's saying. He's like saying that, vagina is power, and that he's basically saying this Hiroshi guy, he may be an egghead, but you've got it. And he practices with her. He starts doing these kind of pantomime, acting out like, what if I'm Hiroshi and I'm starting to confess that I like you? What are you gonna do? And she starts improvising, and she's like, I'm gonna tell you, you are mine. You mean everything to me. And her eyes are glittery, and he's like, looks over to X. He's like, not bad. I think we got it. And so they launch it. Hiroshi is a character who's not so much engaged on camera as a full-flown, fleshed out dialogued character. They are always spying on him with all this high-tech surveillance equipment, most of it portable. And then, of course, they're also going into the computer. When Fox accesses his little bank account and things, he's got a specialized little thing, and it has a swirling cane in it, which is his signature. And he really wants to push this, and so he kind of pushes X into kind of finishing the schooling for Sandy, like teach her how to make Hiroshi fall in love with her. Because what if it was you? What if you were falling in love with her? You know, teach her what a man wants, what appeals to a man on this level. Uh, and of course, as part of their homework, they sleep together, Sandy and X. And of course, gradually, X becomes a little too involved with Sandy for Fox's liking. It's an eternal story. And Fox is not happy about this. And, but Defoe's falling in love with her is very kind of gradual and very believable. I mean, it happens kind of fast, but at the same time, it's, you know, it's real, it's realistic. It's like kind of his kind of guy at this point in his life where he's been kind of a failure at this espionage thing in the past, admittedly, whereas Fox was once a success. This is kind of his last shot, according to Fox. And X is digging it, but he's digging her more, and you see why maybe he wasn't cut out for this kind of thing. Maybe at heart he's a romantic, and the money isn't everything to him. But the question is money everything to Sandy? So they kind of have a meeting of the minds, and of course Fox is gravely concerned, but he's trying to play it cool, and he's basically saying, don't let her hustle you. And X is like, hey, I'm still with you. We're still good. And then I guess you could say, gradually, or maybe not so gradually, things start to go wrong. Again, this is kind of propelled forward by, though some people would think it's not very propelled. It's languorous and languid by, these little set pieces and character pieces. There's one where Walken dresses up and he entertains all these geisha girls, and he's got this insane hat and this kimono, and he's still swinging around this cane, partying, looking forward to the payoff to all this. He's a grand, larger than life character, an irrepressible kind of force of life that can't be kept down. You can cripple me, but you can't kill me. He doesn't say that literally, but it's in there between the lines. And so he kind of wants Defoe to kind of reap the rewards and sleep with all these geisha girls. And, Defoe's X's heart is not as into it. He's like, yeah, this is cool. He's a little more subdued, which he's always been a little more subdued, but who isn't more subdued than Christopher Walken? But X he's in love with Sandy. I love romantic stories. I love impossible romantic stories, doomed romantic stories, weird, mismatched romantic stories, science fiction romantic story, anything that's just weird and unusual and tragic, but that still you feel this passion, whether it's a sexual passion, erotic passion, and or a genuine love, spiritual connection, or some variant of those hybrids. I'm there, and I like to write my own stories that way. So this kind of shit really appeals to me. And Ferrara is great at this kind of doomed romanticism, just as much as David Cronenberg was in Dead Zone with Walken that I reviewed 2 weeks ago in my last episode. So, Fox comes to the party, and I'm going to, in a second, read you a little bit of supplementary information from a good article by The Guardian that came out in 2020. That was along the lines of where I'm coming from on this. So let me bring that back up while the movie continues to play, and I'll add some further insight. Okay, so this is a writer named Beatrice Loaiza. This was from Monday, 17th August 2020. In The Guardian, and a British newspaper, which is not very good for its political coverage, but it's good for its arts coverage. I don't know if anyone mainstream is good for political coverage anymore. So check this out. Critics balked at the maverick filmmaker Abel Ferrara's woozy erotic drama when it premiered in competition at the Venice Film Festival in 1998. A scrupulous adaptation of the short story by the cyberpunk pioneer William Gibson, Nero's Hotel is what we might call a film maudit, unfairly maligned and tragically misunderstood. Since then, it's proven awfully prescient, ahead of its time in its anticipation of our digital anxieties and the way screens generate huge chunks of our day-to-day reality. And that could be TV screens, our phones, all the way up to huge screens, airports, concerts, whatever. Best known for his gritty crime dramas like Bad Lieutenant and King of New York, Ferrara here envisions futuristic industrial espionage the best way he knows how, with a heavy dose of lo-fi sleaze, sex, and delirium. That said, expect a conventional thriller and you will be disappointed. Call it instead an existential techno-erotica, one that tackles the nature of desire in an atomized transactional world, which is kind of what I was getting at, is that can love, like this love blooming between Fox and X and Sandy, or at least within X for Sandy, we're not sure where she stands wholly. Can it survive in this kind of world? I posed that question basically a few moments earlier. The story follows Fox, Christopher Walken, and partner in crime X, Willem Dafoe, blah, blah, blah. We've already got into most of the plot. They enlist a slinky Shinjuku call girl Sandy to set a honey trap sticky enough to draw Hiroshi away from his wife and kids. With hot red, puckered lips, a wispy Italian accent, and a kittenish bob, Sandy attracts more than her designated target. Puppy-eyed X soon falls for the vulpine seductors as well. Sandy returns his affections, or so it seems. And then we experience most of the plot through fragmented, grainy video footage and monitors that not only deny us the fuller, clearer picture, mainly of Hiroshi and what's exactly going down, but make us question the very things we're seeing. There's something of David Lynch's Lost Highway here, the way recorded images toy with perception and function as instruments of paranoia. The Tokyo setting summons the feeling of high-tech, white-collar, global conspiracy breathing down our protagonist. But much of what we see takes place in nondescript impersonal spaces, bland hotel rooms, and hazy nightclubs that could be anywhere in the world. We're told of dealings in Berlin, Marrakesh, and Vienna. But because they're not intentionally visualized, these places lose any meaningful distinction beyond words. Everywhere is nowhere is everywhere. So that's what I mean by the shrinking world here, the different landscape upon which people operate and transact in this near future, corporate, big tech controlled environment. There's lurid anguish pulse beneath the film's bleak impersonal vision of the transactional relationships that dictate reality. This is due in no small part to its electrifying cast, a team of Ferrara regulars happy to indulge the director's freewheeling tendencies and kinky fascinations. As the hobbling, philosophizing brains behind the operation, Walken's Fox is a thrilling loon, practically tap dancing through the movie as he riddles his way through schemes and deal brokerings, wooden cane always in hand. You'll want to pay extra close attention when he speaks. Beyond Walken's musical Mad Hatter delivery, Fox's rhetoric full of sinister double meanings and snippy, profanity-laced insights. He quotes literature a lot, aphorisms, raunchy kind of anecdotes. Now, I want you to remind you that other than the first couple sentences, I had not read this article until now. So my observations earlier that may or may dovetail with this were my observations, and I guess I'm basically on the same wavelength as this person. I'm not copying um, their viewpoints. I guess it's resonating similar with both of us, and that's cool. But hopefully, I expressed it in my own way. Um, so, yes, the relationship between X and Sandy is the film's raw, sensual core. Argento with her tongue flicking coyness, Dafoe with his besotted, adoring gaze. They're the most palpable, fleshy elements of an otherwise spectral movie. Now, this person's a far better film writer than I am these days. It says clear. I'm going to skip through. It's clear from the get go. Sandy is being set up as a sort of femme fatale. Sandy's feelings towards X are ultimately ambiguous, and the implications of her role as a sex worker in a world puppeteered by condescending men like Fox are thrillingly provocative. It is no spoiler to say that X eventually ends up in the eponymous capsule hotel, the New Rose Hotel. This is actually the starting point for Gibson's story, while the rest of the plot plays out as a series of flashbacks. Ferrara's adaptation doesn't meddle with nostalgia until the final act, but the movie's otherwise moody atmospheric quality, punctuated by funky trip-hop interludes, capture the text's dreamy intentions. As we hunker down at home, clinging to memories of happier times, I can't help but feel kinship with Dafoe's lovesick hero, holed up and pining over what could have been. This was written at the height of the lockdowns in the UK. And that's the gist of it. Is the story begins with him in the hotel and unfolds in flashbacks. The movie brings you up to the point, and this is where the narrative break is, and this is where the structure of the film and Ferrara's decisions maybe alienated a lot of the audience. But right before we get to this point, there are people who are cornering Fox, and they're going to kill him, and he wards them off with his cane, and then he's like, let's go, and he dances his way over the edge of a railing and to his death. And then everything changes. So now X is kind of on his own, and everything's backfiring on him. Firing on him. Why is it backfiring on him? Did Sandy sell him out? Well, that's kind of the crux of where we go from here until the ending. Now, I'm personally going to fast forward just a little bit through the movie because what we get to is the aforementioned fragmenting of the structure. Essentially, X goes, underground, and he does hole himself up into this capsule hotel. I'm not sure what a capsule hotel is. Could you tell me? Is it a futuristic thing, or is it just something I don't understand? But that is indeed the New Rose Hotel, and some of this is shot just straight film, like the rest of the movie, and some of it's shot on video, like it's surveillance footage. In other words, perhaps he is being followed and surveilled by the same kind of people that he and Fox were surveilling, Hiroshi. And this place is called New Rose Hotel in Kansas City. Is that what it says, Kansas City? Even though isn't it in Tokyo? Hold on, have they gone to America? Let's go back a minute here. I wanted to look at that. What that said. New Rose Hotel. Manufactured Kansas City, Missouri. Patent pending, so I guess that's. But yeah, I'm sure it's still in Asia, I guess. So he's hiding, and this is where we begin this series of flashbacks. In his delirium and his heartbreak, Sandy begins hearing the voice of Fox, and we begin seeing portions of things that Walken has said to him earlier in the movie. Verbatim scene redone, albeit with a little accentuation on the voice and tinge around the corners that I guess designate it's a flashback. Um, and it's almost like he's now hearing Fox and his admonitions about Sandy, or his admonitions that this could go wrong. We got to do this right. And it goes back to when they first see Sandy singing that beautiful song in the bar. And of course, then we see through the way the flashbacks are edited, Sandy's mind goes from X's mind goes from the warnings about Sandy from Fox to getting to know Sandy and her iconic image in his mind of beauty, and him trying to figure out who she really was, what she really was about. Could he ever really trust her? Did this ever really work? Because he's hearing her talk in flashbacks and seeing, well, maybe she was only in it for the money. Maybe she was blown away by this, but also thought she could double cross them and come out with even more of the big bucks. And maybe that's essentially, what happened. But then X still has this very romanticized view of her. And Fox finds out from a buddy of his, played by Victor Argo, another Ferrara steady. The girl has vanished. So she vanished with the money, the technology. What's she done? Meanwhile, Dafoe's holding up with junk food in this hotel. And basically, this is roughly when this sequence begins. There's about a little under 30 minutes left in the film. So it's the film is 2/3 of the way through. And this last third of the movie is a constant looping of images, flashbacks, quick images you saw earlier, like he's losing some of his technology to try to look at the surveillance footage they recorded. He's looking for any kind of clue without or within himself, within his memory, with any documents he has, to understand what went wrong with the deal, what happened to Sandy, why she did what she did. And it kind of goes on and on. It's a puzzle. It's like a mystery that he can never unravel, really. I mean, it's one of those things that I think is the thing that, to me, gives the film its ultimate power, because you've seen this stuff happen, you've seen it go wrong, the whole setup, in the beginning, and then the implementation of the plan, in which Sandy and X get involved, and that adds a wrinkle to it. And then the plan goes awry, and X is alone, and all he can keep thinking about is what went wrong. And to be honest, if you're going to do a romantic kind of situation like this, like you just meet somebody, you don't know them well, you feel an instant thing with them, you believe it's love, you believe you're going to do this job, and then you're going to go away together, which they talked about. How well do they really know each other? How well does he know her motives? He gives himself over to her, and that's careless, and Fox warns him. And you see some flashbacks of them. Some of the flashbacks did not appear earlier in the movie. They're genuine flashbacks you're seeing, mainly of them in bed, naked, making love, talking after making love. And of course, in his mind, in the flashback, he's running over, what does all this mean? What does all this mean? And if a woman's ever left you abruptly, or a man's ever left you abruptly, and you didn't know them that well, but you really thought it was the real thing, you can get caught on that loop. I've been on that loop many, many times. So I feel for Mr. X here, and Dafoe, I think, is one of our most empathetic performers. And I think his anguish, his confusion, his angst, his passion, his fear, You know, like I said, he goes between flashbacks of things we've already seen in the movie, repeated whole cloth, flashbacks of events that we didn't see that took place in between scenes, interstitial, and then back again. You know, he keeps going back again and again to when they first recruited her, and that's what the mind does. I think when you're on this loop, because I have experienced that. I'm sure there's a psychological term for this that I'm just forgetting. That I've read. Maybe I haven't read it. Maybe you can clue me in the comments, you psych experts. Um, the racing thought pattern. The endless loop is really what I call it, where you keep looping the whole relationship back over to the beginning and picking everything apart. What did you do wrong? What went wrong? What did they do wrong? Where did it start? At what moment did they stop loving me? And man, I had to face that more hard than ever when Kelly left me. And occasionally it still hits me to this day, even though I'm, well through the worst of it. But it's not just me. I mean, this has been acted out in fictional characters. A director who's utilized this trope a lot in the olden days was Jean-Luc Godard. This happens to his characters in several films. Why did they just stop loving me? Why did they abandon me? And the conclusion, the answer, and I've said this for many years in my art and in my personal life about stuff like this, and I hate to come to this rather somber conclusion, is that the answer is there is no answer. And if they do not give you an answer, that is their answer. And so you must move on. And so, we continue with Defoe reliving this stuff. He had like a threesome with her, with another girl, and all these kind of weird things. Again, is that when it could have gone wrong? Um, and then talks about shows Walken once again instructing her. You've got to fall in love with them. You've got to make a man believe you love them. And he's just, you don't know. Her character is she's she's inscrutable. That's one of my favorite words. She's truly inscrutable. And wow. And it's amazing how many times, much to the chagrin of viewers of this film, I'm sure, in the theater, that these fragmented flashbacks come back again and again. And we always return to Defoe in the New Rose Hotel in the dark, scrounging junk food, trying to sleep, trying to think, uh, probably afraid for his life from these people who killed his partner, drinking, just, going over all the minutia, all the evidence of everything that happened. And it's a sad, and it's a tragic thing, man. I mean, and it's destroying him, and you see in him, pretty much all the way to the end. I'm fast forwarding a little bit as I get closer to the end. Almost all the way to the end, he's still thinking of him and her together, and that's really the last. As he looks like, oh my God, I figured it out, and it's horrible. He flashes to them together, and then to black. And School AD has a cool outro theme. So I've kind of fast forwarded through this movie with a live commentary, and so I went over long, almost 2/3 as long as the film. But I wanted to kind of experience it and also to give you the other perspectives and some facts. A really depressing fact about this movie is that while the Wikipedia article does not list the exact budget, it says that the box office was $21,521. That's almost like a magic number. Can you imagine that? That's insane. I hope he recouped on home video. And there is a media book, Steelbook Region 2 Blu-ray out. It costs about $40. It's an import. But I'm gonna hold out for Region A. I don't know when it'll ever come out. If this one goes up in value, I'll sell it because I need the money. For now, I'm holding on to this till I can upgrade it. I've enjoyed watching it again, and I've enjoyed watching with you guys. I hope you got something out of this. Maybe you want to see the movie. Maybe you've seen the movie and are digging on some of my insights, and we're in accord. Or maybe you think I'm fucking out of my mind and it was a boring, pretentious uh, piece of trash. It's all good, man. So here we go. I said I wasn't going to go over an hour with any more of these, and I'm not. And I was trying not to go over 45 minutes. But I'm at 55, and I really don't have anything to say about future videos. I'm going to wing the next few. And I just want to thank you for joining me and making it through 100 Blue Review videos with me. I cannot believe I've recorded 100 segments of a show on YouTube. It's just like nothing I've ever done in my life. So thank you for sticking with me, those that have, and good luck those that haven't. Maybe you'll come back around as I have improved. If you want to support the channel, please subscribe. Please hit a like. Smash the like. The more likes, the more people see my video. The more people see my video, the more people see my video. Because the more likes and the more views the video has, the higher it rises in the algorithms. So if you don't like it, and if not many people watch it, then it's not going to get watched by many people. Does that make sense? It's just YouTube. And I'm seeing it happen. The videos that are being watched more the next day are being watched even more. The videos that are liked more are being watched more the next day and are being liked more on down the road. But it begins with the like and the viewing, obviously. So if you're viewing it, like it, share it so other people can view it, subscribe if you haven't. And that also raises my profile and gets me ever closer to the monetizing qualifications, though I'm hundreds of subscribers away from it, but every bit counts. Thank you for your support, and rock on.